All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are exploring a really fascinating and ancient system of Indian astrology. It's called Brigu Nandi Nadi, and our guide through this is the incredible work of R.G. Rao, who really tried to decode this predictive art. So I want you to forget everything you think you know about newspaper horoscopes, because this is something else entirely. So to kick things off, just listen to this prediction. It's taken directly from the source text. I mean, it's not vague at all, right? It is shockingly specific. It talks about childbirth, a wife running away, a tough time for the husband, and then it even names the exact planetary movement that will signal her return. So the question that just smacks you in the face is, how on earth could anyone claim to know something like that?
Well, the book itself gives us a pretty big clue. It isn't written like some dry textbook. The whole thing is framed as a conversation, a back and forth between a wise master who knows all the secrets and a really curious disciple who, honestly, asks all the questions that we're probably thinking right now. And by following along with their chat, we can start to piece together the logic of this whole system.
So our first section is exactly that. We're setting the stage, getting to know this master and disciple, because their journey is really going to be our guide through this whole explainer.
This is the big one, right? It's the core question the disciple keeps asking over and over. How does this thing actually work? How are these unbelievable predictions even made? We're just going to follow right in his footsteps and learn the fundamental rules, one step at a time.
So let's get into the cosmic code. Before we can really appreciate the master's predictions, we kind of have to learn the basic language. You know, every system has its own vocabulary, and Brigu Nandi Nadi is no different. It really all boils down to a few key players in the sky. First up, and this one is the most important, is Jupiter. In this system, Jupiter is you. It's the person whose chart is being read, what they call the native. The text even calls it the life propeller. So you can think of Jupiter as the main character in the story of your life. Its position and its journey through the zodiac, well, that dictates the rhythm and timing of all the big stuff.
Next, we have Saturn. Now, its role here is boiled down to two core ideas that we can all totally get: your job and your karma. Saturn represents the work you're here to do, your career, but it also represents the consequences of your actions. It's like the cosmic bookkeeper, you know? And then things get a little more mystical with Rahu and Ketu. Now, these are not planets you can spot with a telescope. They're actually mathematical points in space. But in this system, they are hugely important. They're the karmic nodes, and they point to our deepest lessons, our biggest obsessions, and our ultimate spiritual path. So how does the master actually put all these pieces together? Well, the process he describes is surprisingly simple, at least on the surface. First, you find the main planet, say Jupiter for the person. Second, you look at the planets that are sitting in the very next zodiac sign to see what's coming up. And third, you watch Jupiter's slow journey through the sky over the years to figure out when that event is actually going to happen. Okay, so we have the basic code down. Now for the fun part. Let's see how it's actually used. In this next section, we're going to watch the master use this very system to answer the disciples' questions about the things that really matter to all of us: life, love, and how we make a living.
So the disciple asks a super practical question, one I'm sure we've all wondered about. How can a bunch of dots in the sky possibly tell you what someone does for a living? I mean, it seems impossible, right? But the master has an answer, and it's all about symbolism.
Okay, check this out. For one person, the chart shows the sun is in the sign of Virgo. The text links Virgo to vegetation and good crops. So, what's the conclusion? The person's an agriculturist. Then, for someone else, there's a specific mix of Mercury for intellect and Mars for sharp tools. The conclusion? A surgeon. See? It's a language of symbols. All right, so it claims it can nail down a profession. But what about something way more complicated, like family relationships and money? The disciple keeps pushing, and the master shows him how the sequence of the planets can actually tell a story.
In this example, the key is the order of the planets. It's like reading a sentence. The master explains that the sun, which represents the father, is followed immediately by Saturn, his symbolic son. But Mars, representing brothers, is also in the mix. The result? The parent's money isn't just going to one person, it gets shared. The line of planets actually describes how the family wealth flows.
All right, now we're going to see how this builds into something, well, something even more profound. We are now entering the most mind-bending part of the Brigu Nandi Nadi system, its claim of a direct link between what's happening to us now and specific things we did in a past life. To explain this, the master tells a story, a little case study. There's this person who is suffering from a really terrible, suffocating cough that just will not go away. A simple physical problem. The disciple, of course, asks the question that's on all our minds. Why this specific problem? Why a cough? According to the master, it is not a random illness. There's a very specific reason for it, and that reason is rooted deep in the past.
And here's the master's explanation. It's a real jaw-dropper. He claims that in a previous life, this same person struck a calf, and the animal died. So now, in this life, the person suffers from a suffocating cough, perfectly mirroring the suffering of the calf. It's an incredibly direct, almost literal, form of karmic justice.
But the story doesn't end with the diagnosis. The system also offers a solution, what it calls a remedy. To help with the cough, the text suggests performing acts of charity, specifically feeding holy men and giving away a cow. It's an act that directly balances out the harm that was done in the past.
So, after all of these incredible claims, predicting jobs, family fortunes, even events from past lives, you'd think the text would end with a big triumphant flourish. But it doesn't. It ends with the master himself giving a very serious word of caution about this knowledge.
And this might be the most important lesson of all. The master warns the disciple, and, us too, that this is not a simple party trick. He says one must be extremely careful and always take a comprehensive approach. So even within its own story, the system itself is telling us to be humble and to not jump to conclusions.
Which leaves us with one last big question. After looking at all these teachings, is Bhrigu Nandi Nadi the literal cosmic code that can actually predict the tiny details of our lives with perfect accuracy? Or is it a profound and complex storytelling tool, a language of symbols that we can use to find meaning and purpose and a real sense of narrative in the chaos of life? That's something you'll have to decide for yourself.